table, a place in most homes, as you know, where we can sit with family and friends and just talk for hours. And as we like to talk for hours, my friends, about true crime, you're in the right place. So, let's see where we're off to today. We're off to Enoch, which is a city in Iron County in Utah in the United States, and is located approximately 7 miles northeast of Cedar City in Cedar Valley. In the 2010 census, the population was 5,803, but in 2022, 8,231, so it's grown fast. The story I'm about to tell is quite disturbing, really. Very well known in the United States, well, especially in Utah, and for any members of the LDS Church. In the UK, not so much. That's why I've covered it. Here we go. Take a seat, and I'll tell you a story. Michael Haight was born in Seattle in 1980. His family moved to Cedar City in Utah when he was only a baby. He graduated high school in 1998, and being an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, soon after graduation, he started his LDS 2-year mission in Brazil. After his mission, he returned to Utah and enrolled in South Utah University, where he studied for a bachelor's degree in business. This is where he met Tausha, who was born in Nevada, but was also studying at the South Utah University, and she was studying for her bachelor's in child development. They hit it off straight away and were married at St. George's Temple on the 16th of May 2003. They went on to have 5 children. It's Macy, Briley, twins, Sienna and Aman, and little Gavin. Tausha was very active with the church and was actually president of the LDS Young Women's Group in her ward. She was a stay-at-home mum, and she taught her children love and kindness, as well as dedication to the principles of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Michael Haight was an insurance salesman at Allstate, and a very successful one too. His clients would drive for miles to see him because he always got them the best rates around. He was the perfect family man, or so it seemed. There were problems behind those closed doors at 4923 North Albert Drive, Enoch, Utah. You see, Michael was obsessed about what people thought of him. He'd become manipulative, controlling, and abusive. He controlled the people his wife and kids could see or speak to, and that was to ensure that they couldn't say anything bad about him. He's known to have often took Tausha's car keys and phone, so she couldn't go out and she couldn't speak to anybody. He had to look like the perfect family man, hard-working man that provided for his beautiful family. Problems actually started early in the marriage, and Tausha would actually seek advice from a neighbour. She even compared marriages with a friend. The money Michael made, he managed with strict attention, giving Tausha a strict budget to adhere to. She even had to wash plastic bags out so she could reuse them. And he had her cut, the wipes that you clean your work surface with and things like that, and baby wipes. He had to cut them in half so she'd have twice as many for the money that she'd spent on them. If she failed to do this, he raised hell. On one occasion, he gave her $300 for grocery shopping. And because the rug in the kitchen was a bit worn and tattered, she decided to buy a new rug. And she went $30 over budget. He was furious. And he actually said to her that she should have put something back when she was grocery shopping, so she could keep the money for the rug and not go over budget. When the kitchen table was damaged, you know what it's like with a varnished wooden table? It gets scratched, it gets chipped, sliding plates along it, cutlery, hot cups of coffee, all that kind of stuff. They get damaged. He said he wasn't going to pay to replace it because she should learn how to control her children. So she decided to do a little bit of DIY, and she sanded it all down, and she refinished it herself. Major achievement for her. He wasn't pleased or proud because she'd done it. He was furious because he didn't give her permission to do it. If the house wasn't picked up, dishes done, food on the table when he got home, he'd raise hell. But Tausha had made some really good friends in her women's group and, of course, the local neighbours. And they were all aware what he was like. When they were there in the house, giving her a hand, they'd talk in whispers, or they'd go outside if they needed a good chat, because Tausha was convinced he was recording her. She was blamed for everything that went wrong. Anytime one of the children did something he didn't agree with, he'd scream at them at the top of his voice and then blame Tausha. As an example, one Sunday after church, they were all sitting reading scriptures, and Briley had her headphones in, listening to music while she was reading, which is what I used to do. Not read the Bible, but while I was reading. And she was fiddling with the cord on her headphones, and he told her to stop it. But she had her headphones in, so she didn't hear him. So he got right up in her face and screamed at the top of his voice for her to stop it. Then screamed at Tausha for having such unruly children. He actually compared her to his mother, telling her that she'd never be the woman his mother was. And of course, every woman just loves to hear that. Not. Haight had been investigated by the Enoch Police Department for domestic abuse due to accusations made by his eldest daughter, Macy, in 2020. Macy reportedly told the police that her father had become assaultive over the 3 previous years. She said that he'd choked her and that she was afraid that his attacks would worsen, and very afraid that he was going to kill her. Michael told the investigating officers that his daughter, who was 14 at the time, was just mouthy. Tausha told the officer that she didn't believe filing charges was necessary and that she expected Michael would actually take this as a kind of wake-up call. The officer agreed and told Tausha that there was very little indication that there'd be any violent behaviour on Michael's part. On January the 4th, 2023, a mass murder or familicide occurred in Enoch, Utah, United States, when 8 members of a single family, consisting of 3 adults and 5 children, were fatally shot in their home. Authorities identified one of the adults, 42-year-old Michael Haight, as the perpetrator. Haight had been investigated by Enoch Police Department for domestic abuse allegations in 2020, which is what I've just been talking about. Police went to the family residence to conduct a welfare check at 4 p.m. on January the 4th and found 8 family members deceased from gunshot wounds. They were identified as 42-year-old Michael Haight, his wife Tausha, 40, her mother, Gail Earle, 78, and 5 children. 17-year-old Macy, 12-year-old Briley, 7-year-old twins Sienna and Aman, and little Gavin, just 4 years old. Tausha's mother was actually living with the family to help with the preparation and adjustment to Michael moving out. The welfare check has actually been requested by a family friend after Tausha had missed an appointment earlier that afternoon. The authorities determined that the perpetrator was Michael Haight, who died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound after fatally shooting his family members. Asked about the domestic violence allegations after the killings, the county attorney's office said that it had found insufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges. Days before the shooting, Tausha had reportedly told her family that for some reason Michael had removed all the guns from the family home. Family members of the victims released a statement shortly after the shooting, in which they invited all to turn to God in time of need. They praised first responders' efforts and advocated against the use of the situation for political agendas, confirming that all protective arms had previously been removed from the home. Tausha and her 5 children and her mum were all buried in a single service at Laverkin City Cemetery on January 13, 2023. It was reported that Michael's name was never mentioned at the service and that he had a separate private funeral. Surprise, surprise. After the funeral service, another statement was released by Tausha and Gail's family. They stated they had no ill will against the Haight family in the wake of the shooting. An obituary of unknown origin praised Michael Haight as a loving father. It was removed after that description of him sparked outrage. State and local governments offered their condolences in the wake of the shooting. Additionally, counsellors and therapists offered their services, and the local school district activated its mobile crisis response team, alerted parents, and offered support to students. Over the last few years, Tausha had been fed up with her marriage and had told Michael a few times that she wanted a divorce. Tausha had met with a divorce attorney and asked him to serve the papers after Christmas. Michael was served with the papers at work on the 27th of December. Michael had actually called Tausha later that day, asking how her day had been. She asked if he'd received any papers, and he confirmed that he had. He said, "Assuming these are divorce papers, I want you out of the house by the time I get home. And don't even think about taking the children." Yeah, right. Tausha and her children went to stay with her mother. He called her so many times, it was obsessive. On the Sunday, the family went to church, and Michael wasn't allowed to sit with them. Can you imagine what he was like? He was absolutely furious. He was mortified. What would everyone think? He called at Tausha's mum's house and asked Tausha to take a ride with him to talk. And every cell in her body told her not to go. So she didn't. They only stayed at her mother's for the weekend, and then they went home. But Michael refused to leave the family home and was sleeping in the basement on a sling bag. Michael actually recorded himself in their home, playing with his children and having a discussion with his wife about the dire state of their marriage. Bear in mind, she'd just served him with divorce papers. Michael is here telling the children, this is the day before the murders. We might go sledding again. We won't do that today, but we can go to the mountains, maybe tomorrow or the next day. What's really sick about that is he knew that they wouldn't be alive to go to the mountains or go sledding. Other clips. Michael talks with his wife about issues such as child support payments and her attempts to get him to move out of the family home. She tells him at one point, "I'm not safe with you." It makes it look like you're abandoning your family. And so that can be an argument used against a parent that leaves, he tells her. Tausha tells him that he needs to get a lawyer to help the family to move on from the marriage, and that she was willing to go through the courts in order to force him to move out. He said, "I'm a little curious why you're so wanting me so aggressively to just move out of here too. And not let the system play out. And why you're feeling like you have to get some motion to remove me from here," Michael said. Tausha then says that the couple's older children told her that the house was more tense when their father was there. She said, "We're not able to relax. We're still walking around on eggshells. I don't know if you're going to be good cop or bad cop. I don't know if you're going to be mean or angry or frustrated or get in my face or threaten me, or if you're going to be nice and amicable." Later, Tausha actually advocated for herself, and she says that she deserves to be treated better. She said, "I cannot continue to tolerate the way you've treated me." Through tears, Michael says, "I know that I'm the cause. I know I have things to work on." No shit, Sherlock. I know it. I know I have so many good traits too, and I know I can work on these. I'm just pleading. Those are deal breakers for me. You've not shown me that I am safe with you, that you choose my safety or concerns. You show me that you don't even care," Tausha said. She says in one video that she yearns for financial freedom. I don't blame her. In another, Michael tells his wife that he'll go to 20 counsellors if that's what it takes for them to stay together. I hurt your feelings and I feel horrible, he said. Not saying he doesn't say he's sorry and he's pleading her forgiveness and all that. No, none of that. I hurt your feelings and I feel horrible. Just before 10 p.m, Michael texted Tausha asking her to talk, but she never responded. A neighbour told investigators that they heard gunshots around 3:30 a.m. At the time of his death, Michael had just been fired by Allstate Insurance. He told a friend that he'd left his job with Allstate Insurance, and he claimed that he'd been fired with cause because the company felt that he was fraudulently siphoning funds. But according to Michael, he'd already been planning to leave and had given the company his notice. He'd also asked if he was still going to get his end of year bonus, and he was told he would. Allstate then informed him that he didn't have to work his notice because they'd found policy violations in his transactions, so he was now being fired and would not get his end of year bonus. Michael said that this was an unfair way of being fired, like there's a fair way to be fired, and that they had just made this stuff up. Michael had told another friend that he didn't really like the direction Allstate was taking because phone calls from his clients were now going through a switchboard, and he didn't feel he could still offer the same level of personalised client care. He said he was thinking of starting his own independent insurance agency, although the friend that Michael had been talking to was also in insurance. And he would later tell police that if Michael had been fired from Allstate with cause because he'd been doing something nefarious, this termination would be attached to his insurance agent's licence, and it would be very unlikely that any insurance agency would hire him. The friend also said that he and Michael had reviewed Michael's portfolio and discovered that Michael had enough assets to retire and collect several $100,000 a year. Michael had rejected this option because he was worried about what it would look like and what people would think of him. Now, I, for one, would say, well done, that guy. Taking care of his wife, taking care of his 5 kids, and he's retired at 42. Woo-woo! Do you know what I mean? That would be something to be proud of. But no, not for him. In April, it was actually revealed that Michael left a suicide note. The claims in the suicide note left by the murderer stand in stark contrast to conclusions by investigators in the 57-page report that overwhelmingly portray Michael, and not his wife, as controlling and abusive. The report cited the family's communications before the killings and interviews with community members conducted after the January tragedy. This is nonsense. I can't handle it for one more day. We will not be a burden on society. I kept asking for help and you wouldn't listen. This is what Michael wrote. I would rather rot in hell than put up with another day of this manipulation and control over me. The report built off documents released after the murder-suicide that detailed how Michael Haight removed guns from the house, was investigated on suspicion of child abuse, and searched online gunshot in house in the lead up to the shootings. The suicide note and the video recordings paint a picture of Michael as a volatile husband, concerned about maintaining a facade of perfection throughout the southern Utah community in which the family lived, where the majority of residents are members of the church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The police report following the shooting revealed how bedding was laid over all but one of the children's bodies in bedrooms throughout the property. Body camera footage released along with the report shows a very tidy home. Investigators also interviewed a neighbour who said she was awakened to use the bathroom on the night before the 8 bodies were discovered, and she actually heard bangs that she assumed were fireworks, which would have been pretty annoying because it was the wrong date to have fireworks, wasn't it? The report also detailed how Michael, his wife, mother-in-law and 5 children were found in bedrooms throughout the family home on the afternoon of January the 4th, after a person police described as a family friend entered through an open door in the garage. Police had gone to check on the Haight's earlier in the afternoon after concerns about the welfare were reported, but left without reporting any signs or observations of violence. No one answered the door. It didn't appear that anyone was in the home, since no noise could be heard, an Enoch police officer wrote in a report summarising his video to the family home where the bodies were discovered. Tausha, her mother, Gail Earle, and a 4-year-old child were found in the couple's first floor bedroom, laying on pillows, partially covered with blankets and surrounded by blood. The other children were found in bedrooms throughout the home, all of them in their beds, except for 7-year-old Aman, who was on the floor, and Michael, who was found lying on the floor on a sleeping bag. Caseworkers were at the Haight house on December the 19th. Shows a Utah Division of Child and Family Services case documents. The agency had opened the investigation 11 days earlier, based on abuse of the couple's oldest daughter that had occurred in previous years. The latest alleged abuse happened just days before the visit, when Michael was accused of throwing his 7-year-old son to the ground after he got upset with him. His wife, Tausha, told a caseworker that she was concerned about the tone her husband had used and how he looks when he is angry, the report revealed. She asked caseworkers not to interview her husband until after she had filed for divorce, which actually happened on the 21st of December, although Michael wasn't served the papers until the 27th, at his wife's request. She told caseworkers her husband had threatened to take his own life, or make her life hell if she left him. Caseworkers never interviewed Michael Haight. They weren't waiting for the wife's approval to do the interview, they said, but rather gauging the next steps in the investigation, said the Department of Child and Family Services spokesperson, Miranda Fisher, in a statement. Unfortunately, this tragic incident occurred prior to further intervention, the agency's summary report said. Previously released records showed that authorities, like I said earlier, had actually investigated Michael for child abuse in 2020. Newly released reports detail several reports of abuse, including an incident in 2021 when Michael suddenly slammed on the brakes on the highway. It scared the family and left marks on their chests from the seatbelts. In another incident, Michael grabbed his oldest daughter's head and threw her into the hard part of the couch. Macy told caseworkers that her dad would tower over her and her siblings and get close to make them feel intimidated. She said Dad jumps to react to anything he doesn't like. He yells a lot and wants to make sure that they know he's right. A previously released police search warrant, returned, revealed that a search of Michael Haight's phone showed that he searched Google with a question: can neighbours hear a gunshot? Can you hear a gunshot in a house? And how loud is a 9mm? And how loud is a 40mm gun? Well and truly planned. Don't forget, someone forgot to turn the phone off. Don't forget, Michael had previously taken the guns from the home, and this actually meant that Tausha and Gail, her mum, were unable to defend themselves or the children. Sick, twisted, murdering bastard. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for allowing me to tell you this story, and thank you so much for listening. Oh, and I've just got to say, smiles are contagious. Here's one. Pass it on. I've been Sue, TTFN.